From having a creepy night with my girlfriend to the mysterious deer woman with bloody hands, these stories are meant to linger in the recesses of your consciousness, haunting your waking hours with the echoes of the unknown. However, as the clock continues its relentless march, prepare to be ensnared by tales that crawl under your skin, sending shivers down your spine and echoing in the corridors of your mind. Story 1. The Creepy Ghost Man. I had my first girlfriend at 18. I lived with my mom at that time because my parents got divorced when I was 10. We both had jobs. I worked at a local eatery and she worked at a grocery store. That fateful day, we both worked our day's shifts, and so after work, I picked up my girlfriend from her house. We went to a small restaurant 20 minutes away from my house because that's all I could afford at the time. We ate, then we went back to her house to spend some time together. By then it was dark. She complained about how our date night was short, and I told her I couldn't take her anywhere else that had to be paid for. We came to an agreement that we would go on a night drive. We drove in town, then we drove on some empty road in the woods. Eventually the pavement ended, and we were on a dirt road. I had to pee really badly. I told my girlfriend, and she had to pee as well. We pulled over and got out of my car. For some reason, when we got out of the car, we smelled an awful, indescribable smell. I excused it as another person who also pulled over to do their business. My girlfriend actually gagged from the smell. I told her that we would pee real quick, then go back in the car to get back into town. There was a little flat area that was the best place to pee. We did our thing, and then we were on our way back to my car. But on our way back, we heard a noise coming from the left side of us. It sounded like a twig snapping, and we were afraid it was an animal, so we rushed back to my car. Before I had time to open my car door, I heard a scream of fear and pain in the direction my girlfriend and I were coming from. I told my girlfriend to get in my car while I went investigating. She begged me not to, but I did it anyway. To make her feel safer, I locked the doors. I went in the direction of where we had peed, and I heard that scream again. For some reason, I lost all of my courage to investigate now that I hear it much closer. When I heard it, it sounded like it was coming from the same direction that my girlfriend and I heard the twig snapping. Instead of going that way, I went on my phone, turned the flash on, and took a picture. Once the flash went off, I saw a man in a white shirt with black stripes, with some blue tarp right in front of him, and his weird face, like someone who had just come back from the land of the dead. He was just standing there. I didn't hesitate to dash to the car. I unlocked the doors, got in my car, put it in drive and floored it. My girlfriend kept asking me what happened. She saw how scared I was. As a matter of fact, I was literally fidgeting. I told her I would explain later. We got back to the shadier side of town. Then I drove back to my girlfriend's house. We entered the house and went into her room, and then she locked the door. That's when I told her I saw the man with a blue tarp in front of him just standing there. I showed her the picture, and she was just as creeped out as I was. She let me spend the night because we were creeped out. It was a Friday and we also had no work the next day. That was by far the scariest moment of my life, and that memory lived with us for a while. We don't do night driving again. Now, before we move on, please subscribe to our channel where we tell scary and horror stories. If you are brave enough, don't forget to click on the like button and comment. Let us know if you enjoy these stories and what stories you want next. Story 2. The Ghastly Night. It was late in the summer of 2011. I was almost 20 and was hanging out with my best friend who was a few years younger than me. We live in a very rural area of Washington, D.C., Floyd, Virginia to be precise. Around here, pretty much everything closes by 10 p.m., so you have to find your own ways to pass the time. But that was never a problem for us, as we could always find a way to have fun. The night started out harmless enough, first to the mall, then cruising the streets looking for girls. When that proved to be unsuccessful, we just decided to go bowling until they closed. We then went to Main Street a little before midnight just to walk some of the back alleys, acting like the edgy badasses we thought we were. But we never felt like we were in any danger, as there isn't much violent crime in the area. After we'd walked all the streets, we got bored with this and decided to grab a bite from Floyd Country Store, as this was pretty much the only late-night dining option at that time. After we ate, we still weren't ready to go home, so we set out, driving around some of the backcountry roads. This was nothing new to us. As I said, around here, you have to make your own fun, and late-night drives were always our thing. On the stretch of road we were now on, I had only driven maybe once before during the day, though it wasn't far from where either of us lived. We just had no reason to go down it while still in Washington, D.C. The road is paved, but within a mile it enters back into Floyd, Virginia, and turns into dirt like most of the dirt roads around here. The county doesn't really give this one much attention since it's so far out of the way, and there are very few houses on it. Since the road often washes out in the heavy rains, you have to drive much slower, and being as unfamiliar with it as we were now traveling at a crawl. While we were both more cautious now, it still just seemed like any other road we would drive. At this time of night, the roads are essentially empty around here, and with only a handful of houses on this road, we were certain we wouldn't run into any other traffic. The road is mainly wooded and sits at the bottom of a small mountain. At night, it's easy to overlook any of the houses on it. We probably would have missed them all if not for, out of the corner of our eye, we noticed a light burning. We both looked and noticed a man standing under his porch light. We couldn't make out any features of the man, but we could tell he was watching us, standing completely motionless, with the exception of his head following us. While we were both now on edge, we tried not to think much of it. We figured it was just someone stepping out for a cigarette. It's just his demeanor that was so uncomforting to us. While nothing came from that man watching us, this was only the beginning. We gradually picked up our speed as we were becoming a little more unnerved the more we talked about it. Within just a few minutes, though, we came to the end of the road, and we were back on the hardtop, a road that I was much more familiar with and that I drove about once a week. He turned right, and we were feeling much better as we could pick up our speed and leave the thoughts of that man behind us. We enjoyed the sights on this road as it travels atop a small mountain, offering beautiful views of the town below. After a couple miles, we had reached the end of this road and made another right to make our way back to my house. This road is a little more wooded than the one we had just turned from, but I was even more familiar with this road as I drove it literally thousands of times before. As we were making our way back towards the main highway, we saw something up ahead in the distant reaches of my headlights. Deer are horrendous around here, so we figured that's all it was and slowed down. We began to notice it was much wider than the brown fur of a deer, but we're both used to seeing the occasional albino, so we still assumed that's all it was. As we got closer, we noticed it was no animal at all. It was definitely human, but they hunched over with their backs to us. They were walking in the left lane against traffic, as one is supposed to. I looked back at my friend as he asked, "What the hell are they doing walking at this time of night?" I looked back towards the person and could finally make out the shape of an older-looking woman with long, scraggly gray hair, wearing a white shirt and white pants. She still had her back turned to us until we were about 50 feet away from her. That's when she turned to us, and we got the first look at her face. This is not to imply that she was under the influence of meth or any other substances, but that was the appearance she exuded. Deep eye sockets, with heavy dark bags under them, greasy hair, and very aged skin. She looked like she was in her late 50s, but that wasn't the worst of it. She put her hands in the air and started waving them frantically and running towards us. When she did, we could see what looked like dried blood all over the front of her shirt and pants, as well as what looked like a big knife in one of her hands. We weren't sure what she wanted, but that desire to be edgy badasses was instantly erased. I increased my speed and didn't let off until we reached the highway. We were so terrified of the entire ordeal that what would have usually been a 5-minute quick drive to my house became a 35-minute detour, just on the assumption that she could somehow follow us there. In small communities like this, you know pretty much everyone, but neither of us had ever seen this woman before, nor did we ever again. We kept a watchful eye on local news, for any stories about a bloody woman being picked up but never heard a thing. I can't even begin to come up with an explanation why she would be walking the backcountry roads at almost 4 in the morning in that state, with blood on her clothes and a knife in her hand, with all the risks of human or animal altercation she faced. Between these two incidents I had in one night, the woman's incident left a long-lasting mark on my mind, and sometimes I hoped and prayed I would never see her again. Now, if you think this video isn't scary, you can go check out the next one on your screen. 3 dark cartoon conspiracy stories. Go watch it now if you are brave enough.